the ultimate weapon tier list for Monster Hunter Wilds, at least for the open beta. Guys and gals, Terra Knights, what's up, Welcome back to the channel. I put in over 30 hours to playtest every weapon extensively, and seeing that I am a 20-year veteran of the Monster Hunter series, I'm gonna go through my extensive findings with all the weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm gonna rank them in a tier list for you to indulge in the crossplay beta. But disclaimer number one, like I said in my previous few videos, this is just an open beta, so a lot of this stuff is subject to change, although I really don't think it's going to. Disclaimer number two, try not to take this tier list too seriously. We're not even in the actual full release of Monster Hunter Wilds. This is just the beta for the game. And that being said, tying into it, the weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds and Monster Hunter series in general just have so much depth to them individually, so it's actually hard to cover every single little nitty-gritty thing that we need to know until we get our hands on the full game. But from here on out in the video, everything that I say is completely factual, not opinion-based, whatever, and you have to listen to what I say, because I'm a content creator. And if you can't take that joke, then this video is not for you. Well, let's get to it with the Greatsword. The Greatsword has always been the uncontested king of the Monster Hunter series. Not only is this a weapon that puts out mad damage with some of the single highest on-hit damage in the game, but it also gives you a huge dopamine rush because of it. The Greatsword in Monster Hunter Wilds kept it simple by not having too many significant changes. Having a newly added charge slash to the Greatsword, which also acts as a counter, just makes it so much cooler and so much better. The Greatsword also got a few new buffs by being able to go into a strong charge slash instead of a strong wide slash after a jump. So if you're already a big fan of the Greatsword, or you just want some of the highest on-hit damage of the game and you want to feel like a big, strong badass, then you need to pick this weapon. However, as I stated before, honestly, they didn't change too much with this weapon, and that's actually probably for the better. As the saying goes, don't fix what isn't broken. The Greatsword also now has some very nice shortcuts. Not only this, but the newly added focus mode with the Greatsword allows us to actually aim our charge slash swings. Getting a wake-up true charge slash on a monster is also easier to do now than ever. This puts the Greatsword in A tier. The Longsword. Capcom really loves Longsword players because they made this weapon absolutely broken. Yes, I'm not kidding, ladies and gentlemen. The Longsword is absolutely broken now. If you thought it was broken before, wait till you get your hands on this bad boy. The Longsword had actually kind of been reworked, but in its favor, lending even more to the fun that you can have with this weapon and the sheer damage that you can put out. The Longsword has been given new ways and shortcuts to access the red buff of your spirit gauge, along with using less meter for a lot of the attacks you already knew. Some attacks actually don't even take meter anymore, and if you successfully hit it, you actually gain a meter. But most importantly, when you access the red buff with the Longsword, your Longsword playstyle changes up significantly with access to so many powered up versions of the moves that you already knew, but with a tiny downside. Whenever you're in the red gauge, your meter actually continuously decreases now, so you need to make the most of this meter while you have it. That being said, having easy access to get to the red buff, even more so now than ever, makes this completely negligent with all of the damage that you can put out and all of the crazy counters that you can do. Not only this, but the focus attack also lends you a meter as well if you successfully land it. This puts the Longsword straight into the S tier. My main weapon, the Sword and Shield. The Sword and Shield has also seen some really cool changes that apparently a lot of Sword and Shield players aren't too happy about. I, for one, am a Sword and Shield main, and I actually really love the changes with the Sword and Shield. It still is lacking some big, mighty oomph attack, but I'll tell you what, they actually somehow made the Sword and Shield even more fluid with all the versatility that you have with this weapon. This is a weapon capable of severing damage, blunt damage for your knockouts, have super easy access to mounts, so the Sword and Shield stays the king of being a mounting weapon. Not only this, but the Sword and Shield also has iframes. We've been given a new attack in the form of the Spinning Reaper, and the Perfect Rush combo also allowing us to go into the air, unlike Monster Hunter World. It makes it easier to get your mounts, to get the good knockout damage, and to do a new plunging strike, which is reminiscent of the attack in Monster Hunter World, but we can access it at any time now. And this weapon truly got the Greatsword treatment where they didn't fix what wasn't broken. Let's put the Sword and Shield into the A tier. A weapon I'm going to consider maining in Monster Hunter Wilds, the Dual Blades. The Dual Blades have also been upgraded and in a really fascinating way. Switching between Demon Mode and Archdemon Mode is actually now important more than it ever was. We doubled down on switching between these new modes as we have a new tried and true really long combo for the Dual Blades that actually has a lot of interruptions in between, which is actually to the Dual Blade player's benefit. This allows us the ability to not commit so hard to a lot of the attacks that we already knew with the Dual Blades. And speaking of defensive options, yes, the Dual Blades doesn't have a shield, but Now the dual blades HOW has a special timed evade. If you evade with the dual blades in the Archdemon mode at the right time, you actually get a limited time buffs, which makes all of your dodges do attacks as well. So not only do you maybe need to reposition, but when you do dodge, you're actually doing damage. So if you can keep a constant, steady damage flow while dodging at the right time with the new added interruptions to a lot of the combo's attacks, you are going to truly excel with the dual blades. This puts the dual blades straight into the S tier. One of the new undisputed kings of the Monster Hunter series, the hammer. The hammer quite possibly has to be one of the best weapons in Monster Hunter series now. The hammer has seen so many significant upgrades, it is insane how good this weapon is now. Not only do knockouts seem easier than they ever were before, but the hammer's new mobility tactics make this probably one of the easiest weapons to get in huge damage at moment's notice. The newly added hook slinger allows us to get in our charges while being very evasive. And now when we hold forward on the stick and we release the hammer, we don't actually get the spinning bludgeon anymore. We go straight into the attack that we want. Not only this, but the spinning bludgeon does still return, but we can actually go straight into it after said charge attack. The hammer does retain a lot of its core combos, but with the added ability of steps in between these attacks. Not only this, but with one of the hammer's strongest, most significant power modes, actually charges extremely fast and does huge damage. Honestly, the hammer just feels so good to play now, feels so strong for how easy it is to play. The evasion is crazy. The hammer is absolutely insane now, and I'd be a fool to put it in anything lower than the S tier category. The Dooter. The hunting horn also saw significant changes, such as not having your notes being taken away from your score if you get hit out of a performance, as well as having the encore be a single hit attack that's extremely fast and is faster than it ever was. Not only this, but we also have access to echo bubbles. We can place down 3 echo bubbles at a time and they recharge over time. While we're also putting the echo bubble down, we can store up to 3 notes at a time by pressing buttons rapidly. And not only this, whenever we attack with the hammer, the echo bubbles all trigger with small amounts of damage, which don't add up to a whole ton. But the ability to trigger this damage from anywhere nearby just simply by playing notes with the hunting horn, no matter what they are, makes this weapon absolutely insane. Also has its own counter attack, which is extremely easy to access and does big damage. The point of this weapon never has been huge damage compared to the other weapons, and that's not to say that it is a support weapon. Not only does it provide yourself buffs, your cat buffs, but even your teammates as well if you're unfamiliar with the hunting horn. And because of this, I am also going to put the hunting horn straight into the S tier category. A weapon with surprising buffs in this game, the lance. The lance has doubled down on what it does best by being one of the most defensive weapons, and because of that, one of the most offensive weapons. The lance's impenetrable defense is back and better than ever. And not only this, but we actually have better movement options than ever before. Our damage has also been significantly upgraded with the lance, allowing for new combo routes and opportunities. But we even have an addition to our combos as well, ending in a triple thrust attack. The lance was already a super underrated weapon in the Monster Hunter series, and I feel like this weapon is always rated pretty poorly because it hasn't always dealt the biggest damage in the game. But I think that's nonsense. The defensive capabilities of this weapon allow you to stay right next to the monster, thus lending to a huge DPS uptime. Therefore, the lance is an amazing weapon to pick up, and I'm highly considering it for my main weapon in the full release of Monster Hunter Wilds. And normally I would put this in the S tier category, but we're going to put it in A tier category because of this next weapon. A weapon with even more buffs than the lance, the Gunlance. I keep saying this so much in this video, you guys. I know it's crazy. The Gunlance has seen significant upgrades, especially compared to all the other weapons I've already covered. Not only does the Gunlance finally have access to an actual counter attack, but the damage that you get with this weapon is absolutely insane. We also have the addition of an extra Wyvern's Fire in our Gunlance at all times. The shelling has been significantly upgraded to allow us to be extremely evasive with the Gunlance. The damage and combo routes seem almost unending with how much damage they do. Shelling seems to scale off of attack damage now, and the Wyvern's Fires we mentioned before deal huge damage. Not only this, but actually comboing into a Wyvern's Fire makes it come out significantly faster. Combo routes are also different for the better, making the Gunlance stand out completely compared to the lance. Both weapons feel completely unique now, and I cannot thank Capcom enough for this. But honestly, you're gonna have to test the Gunlance out yourself and see exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as you do, you will know exactly why I'm putting it into the top of the S tier category. This weapon is uncontested for being one of the new best weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds. The Switch Axe, which has gotten a serious overhaul. The Switch Axe, originally deuced in Monster Hunter Tri, is also back and has seen some pretty good upgrades, but to its playstyle. Gone are the days of ZSD spam like in Monster Hunter World. The Switch Axe truly is doubling down now on the versatility that it should have had from the get-go. The axe form now replenishes your sword meter gauge, and the sword form also remains the same, but has actually been significantly upgraded with the attack combos and routes and opportunities that you have. It also has been given a defensive option in the form of a counter. Not only this, but you can actually activate your axe mode power-up without the use of wild swings from a jumping attack off of your sacred. This weapon truly feels extremely amazing, and having new follow-ups after our typical discharge with the sword form, and the ability to charge down the attack depending on the time frame and the window of opportunity that we have on a monster, makes the Switch Axe better than it ever has been before, but also just feels so good, man. Therefore, the Switch Axe does land itself in the A tier category. The Charge Blade, which seems easier to use now than ever. The Charge Blade has also remained one of the uncontested strongest weapons in the Monster Hunter series, but not only this, it's always been one of the hardest to play. I'm happy to say that the Charge Blade actually feels easier than it ever has in Monster Hunter Wilds, but that doesn't mean it's still an easy weapon. However, we're not actually knocking the Charge Blade for that. Not only do we use less vials than we did before, we also have new combo routes and opportunities that just weren't available to us before. Charging the shield is even easier now. As soon as we store our vials, we can charge our shield immediately. And Savage Axe form has also been simplified, but in a good way, where we have to access it through certain means and attacks on a monster, lending to the uniqueness of the Charge Blade that only experts can really make use of. Not only this, but the newly added focus mode actually allows us to aim our SAED in the proper direction if we actually are outspaced by the monster or our positioning was just poor, allowing us to get the SAED guaranteed as long as we're still in range of the monster. What's truly amazing about the Charge Blade is they truly made this weapon extremely freeform that doesn't just double down on whether you like SAED or the Savage Axe mode. This weapon does it all now in relatively short and easy ways, and I cannot recommend this weapon enough. If players are looking for a weapon that takes a little bit of commitment but highly rewards you because of it. Therefore, the Charge Blade is also still lending itself to the S tier category. I really don't know what they did with this weapon still. The Insect Glaive. Okay, I gotta be real, guys. The Insect Glaive feels really bad now, and I know that a lot of Insect Glaive mains are going to probably hate me in this video, but I cannot rate the Insect Glaive higher than a C tier. Not only does the aerial mode with the Insect Glaive seem to be mostly forgotten about, only allowing us a quarter of the time we used to actually be able to spend in the air, but our Kinsect in the beta does seem to be extremely slow as well. Now, this is a beta version of the Insect Glaive, and we do have access to some new cool attacks with a charge attack that we can do only when we have the red buff. But the Insect Glaive's combo routes are not very intuitive anymore, and the Insect Glaive does still retain a lot of mobility, but having lost a lot of access to the air makes this weapon feel extremely foreign. The Insect Glaive does still have a lot of the normal attack combos and opportunities, but without a full release of the game and more playtesting to has to be done with the Insect Glaive. The Insect Glaive is extremely hard to wrap your mind around if you've already played this weapon. Not only this, but extracting some of the buffs on some of the monsters specifically in the beta for Monster Hunter Wilds also seems a bit tough. That being said, the Insect Glaive does still seem to put out a ton of damage relatively simply, actually. And to be fair, I've never considered myself an expert. I do feel like I'm a pretty good player of the Monster Hunter series as I've been playing for a very long time. And I think that's going to require even more to truly unveil exactly what this weapon is capable of. The Light Bowgun. The Light Bowgun has actually been given access to a special meter known as the Rapid Fire Energy. Rapid Fire Energy is something that you can equip at any time and is actually replenished over time, but also replenished as you shoot with the Light Bowgun. Making use of the Rapid Fire Energy enhances all the shots that you deal, but also enhances your evasion and your dodges, allowing you to shoot while you make those dodges. So the Light Bowgun has really doubled down on what made it so special in the first place, which was an extremely mobile monster with a huge DPS uptime, but they doubled down on that even further by giving it the special meter that truly doubles down on the feeling and the dopamine rush that you get, not necessarily from huge, big attacks and single attack swings, but through a steady and constant flow of DPS over time that truly makes this weapon an absolute machine now. Special ammo such as armor ammo, demon ammo, and even health or recovery ammo now has actually an AoE as well, which means that you can shoot it at yourself, shoot it at your cat, and you can walk through it and get the buffs that you need, making the Light Bowgun an actual super big weapon as a support weapon for yourself or even allies. And of course, we do still have access to a lot of the good stuff like status ailments. Therefore, the Light Bowgun hasn't really changed all that much except for the rapid fire energy that we have, and it remains to be seen whether we do have some kind of counterattack with the Light Bowgun, but since this was already an extremely evasive weapon before, it's not really needed. That being said, however, the light bowgun doesn't really do anything extremely crazy, but it doesn't do anything extremely bad either. And only having access to one Wyvern Blast at a time now actually is going to land the light bowgun in the B tier category. The heavy bowgun. The heavy bowgun hasn't actually seen a whole lot of changes in Monster Hunter Wilds. You have access to a new counterattack with the heavy bowgun. Wyvern Snipe has kind of been transitioned to the new focus mode attack with the heavy bowgun, and therefore making our special ammo or our special energy or our clip being the Wyvern Heart Ignition. Something that was always really good for damage in Monster Hunter, but you need to keep a flow of damage going to actually get the good damage by shooting it over time. The mobility with the heavy bowgun is the same as ever, traversing very long distances, but being really slow at that. The heavy bowgun also seems to be dealing big damage this time around with the access to rapid fire shots, giving it more damage than light bowgun, of course, but at the cost of more danger just with the sheer heft of this weapon. Having access to a lot of different ammo types with the heavy bowgun in this beta, however, also lends to the idea that the heavy bowgun isn't just about more damage with the reduced mobility, but it's also about having a huge arsenal at your disposal. That being said, the heavy bowgun was considered one of the best weapons in Monster Hunter World and considered literally the best weapon by myself personally. And they haven't really changed a whole lot with the heavy bowgun, and because it was just so absolutely amazing before, I think it's about middle of the tier list compared to all the other weapons now. Therefore, the heavy bowgun is going to land itself next to the light bowgun in the B tier category. The bow. Last but not least, the bow has also seen the addition of a new meter tied to it. No longer do we have to actually bring coatings with our bow. Coatings are actually inherent on the bow itself. Utilizing power coating or poison coating on the bow in the beta actually relies on this meter. Not only this, but the bow's combos remain the same, but we also have access to the tracer shot, a special ticking time bomb arrow that sticks in the monster, but actually allows our bow to fire off shots that home in on the monster. The bow has also been giving extreme mobility with the swallow shots. Not only this, but the damage seems to be absolutely crazy with this thing. And the introduction of this new special meter to act as our coatings has actually made the bow way better than it's ever been to play. We also have access to the 1,000 dragons like we used to, but the Dragon Piercer also does significant damage now because of the new Tracer Arrow. It makes the bow way easier to play than it's ever been. However, I feel that the ranged weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds suffer from a success a little bit by how easy they are to play by staying at a distance from the monster, and so I feel that they haven't been given as many upgrades as a lot of the other weapons in this game. That being said, the introduction of homing arrows on the bow is even cooler than ever. Therefore, the bow's going to land itself in the A tier category. If we're giving it a cool factor, this is an S tier weapon. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate weapon tier list for Monster Hunter Wilds that definitely isn't debatable, and you cannot argue with me on any of this. Jokes aside, I did hope you enjoyed the video. I do feel like a lot of the melee weapons got extremely special treatment in Monster Hunter Wilds, and I'm actually happy to see that. Honestly, seeing myself put both of the lances and the hammer and the hunting horn into the S tier category is something I never dreamed of in a Monster Hunter game. They absolutely changed these weapons and made these weapons so much more appealing, and I feel like a lot of players are really going to want to pick these weapons up. Not only this, but the combo routes are extremely awesome, and I honestly just cannot get enough of these new additions to all these super underrated weapons in the Monster Hunter series. And I've been playing this series for 20 years, man. So seeing these weapons truly rise and shine like this is absolutely just a godsend. But that's all I've got for today's weapon tier list today, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, remember this is a beta weapon tier list. A lot of this is subject to change, or I'm just totally full of it because I have put in a lot of hours into Monster Hunter Wilds already with the PlayStation beta, but honestly, I feel like all these weapons deserve a good 20 to 30 hours each to truly master these weapons and to truly know exactly what you're talking about. That being said, I've played the Monster Hunter series for a solid 20 years, so I have a pretty good idea of what I'm feeling, but I definitely see myself changing this up a ton in the future with the actual release of Monster Hunter Wilds, which I'm so excited for. Speaking of which, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider it. We're on our way to a goal of 30,000 subscribers before the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, and every little bit truly helps. And if you're not in the loop, we actually stream Monster Hunter World on a weekly basis, every Thursday through Sunday, and we're going to stream Monster Hunter Wilds when it comes out as well. By the time you're watching this video, I'm probably actually live right now with the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. I stream on YouTube and Twitch, so you can tune in on the platform of your choice. And finally, what is your favorite weapon in the Monster Hunter series? But that's all I've got for today's video, guys and gals. Terra Knights, I'm signing off. This has been Terrorizer, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace!